But the Governor Rajan today demolished the criticism that high interest rates were responsible for poor credit to industry. He also warned industrialists that the new rules to write down debt was only for good promoters and viable projects. His parting shot was this: "I intend to be a lot in India, so don't write me off just yet."
In the last few days, I've read a lot of my obituaries. And, I'm still here. I'm still here for 2.5 months in this job. And after that, I will still be around somewhere in the world, probably a lot in India, so don't write me off.
Governor Rajan is in a fight-back mode. Days after he announced his exit from the Reserve Bank of India, he put up a spirited defense of his actions. First, on the poor credit offtake.
Slowdown in credit growth, as well as the tightness that many industrial firms are facing, is largely because of stress in the public sector banking system. And what is required to restart it is a cleanup of the balance sheets of the public sector banks. And my belief is when this process is taken to its logical conclusion, they will have sustainable balance sheets to support the growth that this country very much needs.
To the accusation that the regulator did not take adequate action to curb the bad loans menace, Rajan hit back, saying the duty of the RBI is to warn banks, not to micromanage their poor commercial decisions.
Trying to say regulators should have stopped the bad loans doesn't understand. Somebody saying that doesn't understand regulation. The regulator's job is to identify the loan that has gone bad, identify the people who are masking the loans by making loans just before loan repayments come in. Forbearance is not a crime. A lot of regulators exhibit it for a little while. The problem is it's a very risky strategy. If the loan comes back, well and good. If the loan doesn't come back, it tends to grow bigger and bigger and badder and badder.
Bad loans, added Governor Rajan, would not get resolved by an easy monetary policy.
When you have a very distressed promoter, if in fact the policy rate is cut, banks don't necessarily pass on that lower interest rate to the heavily indebted promoter because they want to suck out every rupee he generates for their repayment. So for the heavily indebted promoters, the idea that cutting interest rates will make credit easier is simply not right.
Rajan also had a word of advice for the government for its reluctance to infuse capital into state-run banks.
Governments are sometimes reluctant to infuse capital into banks because there's all sorts of other competing needs. So capital infusion into the banks can be a very, very high return investment for the government because it will help speed up the process of cleaning up, but also then give the banks some space with the capital that's left to make the loans that are needed to increase the pace of the economy.
Rajan closed his remarks with a reluctant parting advice. Government could look at recapitalization bonds to capitalize the public sector banks. This was used by the Congress government in the 90s, and while it does tie up banks' money a bit, it also released the government from having to spend money immediately in capitalizing banks. In Mumbai with Latha, Venkatesh, Ritu, Singh.